you.
CommanderSmiths, get me a deck. One more game. You can't beat me. CommanderSmiths, if you can't beat me, I'm gonna drain my life away.
Man, I don't even know. I have no idea. I was trying to think. It sounds like Electric Worry by whatever, but I don't think that's that right song. What is it?
No, Son of a Bitch.
Oh, Son of a Bitch.
Nathaniel Radcliffe and the Night Sweats. Yeah.
Nice. That's good. I could tell it was something I knew, but I couldn't put it together. I was like, damn it, CommanderSmiths. Speaking of CommanderSmiths, welcome to CommanderSmiths, episode number 5.
Hey, we're there.
We've made it. Adam Smith.
I am Lowry Smith.
And we are cousins.
I believe we're both fans of Kirk Cousins.
Oh, cousins.
Coming to the Vikings. Woo!
If you don't know, we are Vikings fans. We're in Minnesota country. So we are kind of happy that Mr. Cousins came here.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard actually kind of a funny joke with that.
Oh, what's that?
You know what we have in what's similar between us and Packer fans is that we both like our cousins.
It's concerned, but they are. We're not.
So yeah, you Packer fans will like that, Tyson.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is episode number 5. Are you? It's like
I really enjoy that one. Yeah.
I was like, that was pretty good. Episode number 5. This is actually probably the first episode we're not doing more of specking, talking about cards like that.
Well,
we're actually going to kind of break down into. Well, we're going to talk about specking, but not the whole episode like we've done with our previous ones. This one we're going to break down into 3 segments.
Yeah, first one we're going to talk about Animar, which is a new commander, or not a new commander, but a reprinted commander out of Masters 25.
But wait, what is that segment called?
This is going to be called Commander Spotlight.
Yeah, and so we're Animar Breakdown, just because of the new set, or Masters 25 coming out.
Yeah, and so that means Adam made a deck, and then I made a deck, but separate, and different ideas going on there.
Larry put a little bit more work into this, because I already had mine built, and I've had it built for like 5 years. Just been tweaking it, and Larry actually had to put a deck together, so his is a little more new, I would say, and a lot more work into it.
Probably
mine
better.
was just going through my 100 cards. I like that card, I like that card, and I like that card. And I'm going to talk about it.
And that's okay.
Second segment, we are going to actually talk about specs. We're going to try to talk about what specs we think are good each week.
Yeah, we'll just talk a couple of specs that we're randomly going to pull out of the Aether.
And kind of talk about why we think that card might jump. Just a few. And if there's more that week that we think might jump because of something that happened, rule change, or for some reason it's making multiple cards jump, well, then we'll talk more about that. But this week it's only a few, 3 cards each, right? About 3 cards? Yeah. And then we go in the last segment.
The last one, we're going to talk about the news of the week, which kind of happened earlier this week.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
Huge spoilers. A leak, actually, that out of Magic.
It's crazy.
For Dominaria.
This last year of all the stuff that's been leaked, it's like insane. They just keep leaking. Like there's either the printer, what was it? One of the guys that was actually printing the cards out took a picture of it as it was coming out of the printer.
Yeah, they just lost their job, I'm sure.
And it's just like all these different people that there's a lot of people that come in that have to deal with making the cards, so it's kind of hard to regulate that, but it keeps coming from different sources.
Yeah.
And this one's kind of funny because they didn't like try to keep it under wraps. They're like, well, it's out, so here you go.
We can definitely talk about that at that point.
So, but let's start with segment number 1.
Commander Spotlight.
So
we just came up with that.
Yeah, but,
I hope you like it.
Yeah, about 5 minutes ago. So I like how you said it too. Commander Spotlight.
Yeah. Jazzy and smooth.
So we're talking about Animar, Soul of, what is it?
Elements.
There we go. Yeah. I have it blocked because I have my alternate art. So I was like, wait, is it Elements?
I didn't feel like I had to pull that card up.
Yeah. So it's blue, red, and green, and he's a 1/1, if you guys don't know. Protection from white and black. We've talked about him before.
Yep.
But whenever you cast a creature spell, you get to put a 1/1 counter on him, and then each creature in your hand costs 1 less to cast for each counter that is on him.
Which is really powerful.
Yeah, so you can make some pretty good combos. And then, like Larry said in episode number 4, protection from white and black.
Protection from white and black is pretty important
Yeah.
if you have a lot of spot removal.
Yeah,
going
and those are the
around.
big spot removal things.
Yeah.
You know,
Swords of Plowshare, Vindicate.
Red is really the only other one that I'll get in there that'll disrupt that, but it covers two of the big ones of removing it. So we're going to start with the deck that I had built is a little bit easier. We can go through my stuff pretty quick here. The basic idea of my deck when I built it and when I keep tweaking it is you need a lot of mono rocks, little guys, not rocks that like soul rings or anything like that. I actually don't even think I have I have. Of course, you have a soul ring in here.
Of course, yeah.
But you need the creatures, the ones that are creatures and come into play, because not only when you cast it to give you mana for your other turns, it also puts a 1/1 counter on Animar. And if you play a lot of the mirrors or artifacts, they end up being free.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, after 2 other creatures, they're free.
Yeah.
Which is, and that's. How many like colorless creatures do you feel like you have in that deck?
Colorless
in general,
creatures.
not just like your
in
not
general?
the Mur, but
I'd probably say because you got the big guys in there, not counting the mono rock guys.
Yeah. Well, including them.
Yeah. Then I'm probably around 10 to 15, I would think.
Yeah. And that feels like the powerful thing where you're playing creatures for free.
Yeah. And that's the big idea of what I made the deck, and then you have your big honchos that take over and you win the game, but it's really the setup of getting your little guys out. And actually the point of that too is if somebody does kill your Animar, you still have these little monodorks that can
get them out quicker,
or even cast your stuff with having all the monodorks.
That's a good point.
So sometimes when people kill my Animar off, I'm like, that's fine. I don't need to cast them because I already have enough guys to cast whatever I want at that point. So this deck, I have 11 monodorks, basically 3 mana or less. Basically green or artifacts is pretty much that's I'm just looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Everything's green or artifacts for the monodorks.
I couldn't think of like a blue or red mana dork that's any good.
And then from there, I'm actually going to go into the actual cards. I'm not going to tell you what monodorks I have. You can just pick out what ones you want. A lot of the mirrors just to match what color Animar is.
Yep.
So the next step I go into is feeding into Animar. So the first card I want to talk about is Predatory Hunger. And that's a pretty...
What's that too?
So it's a 1 green enchant creature. Whenever you put this basically on Animar. Whenever an opponent successfully casts a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on enchanted creature. So you just play it on Animar. Anybody else, gets
that
around
can build up really quick.
You get your counters on before you don't even need to cast your creature cards. So that's my first mana pumping dude. Now Vigor or Vigor he's kind of he's a mix between a counter pumping guy and kind of protecting your guy, or a big fatty, but he's 3 green, 3 colorless, and he's a 6/6 trample. If damage would be dealt to any of your creatures, instead prevent that and put a 1/1 counter on them instead. Now it doesn't do it for him, but it does it for everybody
but he's
else.
still really powerful.
Don't do anything with
he's
him.
adding counters onto your Animar as well, which is pretty solid. Yeah, feeding into Animar.
Yeah, and we've used him in many other decks, but it just kind of works perfect with Animar, and then protecting your little guys too is kind of the point.
Well, and I feel like it also adds like protection for red, like because if you're doing surround damage, that can actually kill Animar. But with Vigor out, it helps protect it because it prevents that damage to put the 1/1 counter.
And even if it got enough, like let's say they threw out an earthquake, it would still get all the counters from earthquake happening, wouldn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So the counters would pop onto it. Vigor would probably die if they got 6 enough or whatever.
Yeah. So if somebody plays earthquake with your Vigor out, like, they gotta kill Vigor, or they just had you win the game, basically.
So, so next card is Vorel of the Hallclad, right? I'm pronouncing it right, Larry. Check it.
I say Clade.
Okay.
Of the Hallclad.
Thank you, Wordsmith. So it's 1 green and blue. It's a legendary human merfolk. That's not really the point of it. The point of this card, he's a 1/4 creature. Green and a blue, and tap him. For each counter on target artifact, creature, or land, put another one of those counters on that permanent. So you double up.
Double Animar.
What's on Animar.
I like it.
Yeah. So and then moving along. Prime Speaker Zagana.
Yeah, Zagana.
Woo-hoo. 2 green and 2 blue. Another legendary creature, merfolk wizard. 1/1, but when he comes into play, put X 1/1 counters on him, where X is equal to greatest power among creatures you control. And then the best part about it is when he enters, draw cards equal to his power.
Yeah.
So you're at least drawing one.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's a really good card in Animar because if you have like the Animar cost reduction and you play that, let's say Animar is just on 4.
Yeah.
And then if you draw 5 cards off of Zagana, you might be able to play all those creatures.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Very, like, just potentially.
No, I mean, it's a lot to cast, but it gets pretty easy once you have Animar with counters on them, whatever.
Yeah.
Next one is Renegade Krasis?
Krasis.
2 green, 1 colorless. It has Evolve on it, which basically when you cast a creature that has either power or toughness bigger than him, is it equal?
No, it has to be
bigger. You get to put a 1/1 counter on him. Whenever you put a counter on him, or Evolve is what it is, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it.
Gotcha.
So, Animar should have a counter on him when he casts or when you play another creature, so it should be doubling up on the counter. Not doubling, but getting an extra counter.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And then the last but not least, which is in every freaking
doubling season.
Yeah, counter kind of deck, it's doubling season. And that's just a must-have.
And it stinks. I wish they just would reprint it more because it's so important for Commander.
And they only have the 2 printings then?
They have like a Judge promo and then a Modern Masters version and then the Ravnica version.
Yeah.
And if they do reprint it, people go out and get it. If it's $20-$30, it just always just continues to go up.
Oh, and I guess we should explain the card. 1 green, 4 colorless.
Yeah.
Most people know what this is, but if you're listening, you don't know. It's 1 green, 1 colorless enchantment.
4 colorless.
Or 4 colors, sorry. And then any counters that come into play under your control, you're doubling them.
That's planeswalkers. That's +1/+1 counters.
That's tokens.
That's tokens. It'll double you. Yeah,
-1/-1 tokens. Like,
which sucks, but
well, if you're doing it to other people, you can.
It doesn't double.
Oh yeah, it's only for you.
Only
Never
for
mind.
you.
X-nay that.
So I mean, if somebody's playing a -1 like a Scorpion God deck, good for them. But
yeah,
but doubling season is ridiculous.
Yeah. Then the next section I move into is, well, I'll do the creatures, the bigger fatty creatures. The Mimic.
Progenitor Mimic.
There we go. It is 4 green and blue, and it's a shapeshifter. He's a 0/0, but when he comes into play, you may copy a creature that's in play, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you make another copy of that creature. So it's just, it's more of to copy your big fatties that you're going to be able to cast easily with Animar.
Yeah, and really, ideally, you're casting that for 3 or 2, even, and then you're copying whatever cards you're going to talk about at the end.
Yeah.
So
now the next card I get into is a card that I typically can win the game with. It's Tidespout Tyrant.
Oh.
5 and 3 blue. He is a 5/5 flyer, but the big part of this guy is whenever you play a spell, return target permanent to owner's hand. So you just start casting your creatures out, and you just start popping stuff back to people's hands.
And that's even if they get countered, you still casted a creature, and so you're bouncing a land or bouncing a creature or just getting ahead.
And then if you go with the whole the card I talked about earlier with the drawing cards, if you're able to draw a whole bunch of cards that turn or whatever. I have a bunch of other ones that are for drawing specific when you cast a creature. I'm not really talking about those.
Like Momir Vig in there.
Then you just continually going through your deck and just everybody's stuff is popped. And by that time, we normally are like, all right, you win the game.
Yeah, there's no point in trying to come back at this.
And then another one that is just fun. It's an artifact, could be free depending on how big Animar is Blightsteel Colossus. Now that's just I know it's infect.
You know what?
But it's my win. If somebody has too much life, this is my way to get around it. But I also have that with Animar to be able to do the damage. But 12, and he could be free potentially.
Yeah. I'm not going to make any comment. It's fine. It's fine. I love poison.
It's the best.
Probably the best mechanic ever.
You're so bitter.
Poisons normally are.
All right, and then everybody's favorite, or not when it comes out on you, Voinclex, Voice of Hunger.
Awful.
6 and 2 green. He is a 7/6 trampler, And what he does is doubles all your mana, and then any mana that anybody else taps stays tapped for an extra turn. So
that's a game ender in my mind too.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, when we've had it come out, we don't necessarily, it isn't game ender, but you almost have to have one person sacrifice himself.
Somebody's like, I'm going to take a turn off
and try to kill that thing. Yeah. But then their mana just stays tapped for one more turn, so they're out a whole turn pretty much.
It's brutal.
So yeah, and that's the big fatties. The next part of mine is the searchers of my deck. Now the biggest one, the best one, is Tooth and Nail. It is 5 colorless, 2 green, sorcery. Now it has Entwine, which you can tap 2 more to combine. Well, I should read it at the end. The card says choose one. Either you search your library for 2 creature cards and reveal them, put them in your hand, or you take 2 creature cards from your hand and put them into the battlefield. Or you can pay 2 more, so you have that 5 and 2 green, so you pay an extra 2 more, and you get to search for 2 green creatures and then put them directly into play. So that's my win game. Like, I saved that to go.
Well, and I think it's just kind of like a fail-safe card for, like, if people are picking on Animar and just continue to try and kill it. By the time you're up to that mana, you're still able to get those huge creatures out.
Yeah. I don't think I've actually... No, I've played him a couple times. Because Tooth and Nail was kind of a late ad. I actually bought that...
It's an expensive card, so it didn't go down until they reprinted it in a Modern Masters set.
Yeah.
And then...
So then, keeping with the searching, Natural Order, 2 and 2 green. When, as an additional cost to cast Natural Order, sacrifice a green creature, but you get to search your library for a green creature card and put it into the battlefield. So basically, Craterhoof Behemoth, which I'm going to talk about in a second here. That's what this is normally searching for.
Go and get Craterhoof.
Yeah, so that's my game ender for that. And then the last searcher is Momir Simic Visionary. Hey, I got it all.
Nice.
3 green and blue. And what he does, he's a 2/2 legendary elf wizard. When you play a green creature spell, you may search your library for a green card, reveal it. If you do, put it on top of your library. Whenever you play a blue creature spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put that into your hand. So if you can cast something that's green and blue, you go search and put it into your hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to search and you're putting it on top and getting your next turn ready to be able to cast with
Animar. And I've played against this deck, so I know that you do have cards that play off the top of your library as well.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah.
So
that's not in what I'm discussing, but you're right.
You do have that.
Yep. And then we get into my 4 game winner cards, which is the way I get through if Animar's huge. I need something to give trample because, little chump blockers.
People can chump it.
Yeah, and the good thing is protection from white and black, like we were saying before.
Get through token decks.
That gets through a lot of stuff, but
not green, but
I need to potentially get through little chumps, so I added all these trampler guys. So the first one is the green god, Nylea, God of the Hunt. It is 3 and 1 green, indestructible 6/6. It's a god. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, she isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have trample. So it doesn't matter if she's a creature or not. You already can give your stuff trample as soon as she comes into play.
You can still pump it as well.
And then, yes, that's the last ability is 3 and 1 green. Target creature gets 2/2 until end of turn. And you can do that multiple times if you want to, because it's not
as much mana as you can. And that's something else that I was going to say with your Natural Order and with this, your little green mono dudes, mana dorks, they feed into both of those as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're able to just use all that mana to pump a guy, or with Natural Order, you can sacrifice one of those
the little
for
dudes.
really easy.
Exactly. And then we go into Overwhelming Stampede, 3 and 2 green. It's another sorcery, but until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and X+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So let's double Animar's power, and then give all my other creatures whatever.
And again,
you have the little mana dorks out, and they can turn into...
I for some reason, I keep on coming to the mana dorks, because I feel like people maybe don't play them enough, but in this style of deck, it definitely helps to have more creatures that you can pump with your Overwhelming Stampede.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's multiple cards in here that do that, and then the next one is Pathbreaker Ibex.
Yep.
4 and 2 green. It's a goat. 3/3. Now the thing is, it's not a game winner when you cast it. You need it actually to attack, but it does the exact same thing that I just said with Overwhelming Stampede. So when he attacks, creatures you can control get X+X and trample until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So the exact same thing I just talked about. And then the icing on the cake is the one I've been talking about, Craterhoof Behemoth. It is 5 and 3 green, 5/5 haste beast. When he enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and X+X. Hey, there's a little theme going on here.
Yeah.
Until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So that's where the tons of monodorks, tons of creatures come into play, because it's not based on the power. I mean, I might not even have Animar out, or I might have it, out of 1/1, I had to recast it or something like that. But I have enough monodorks out there, where it's 7, 8 of them, and they're all getting 8+8 or 9+9 or whatever in trample. So that's another thing.
The thing about Animar in this deck that you've made, since I've played against it, I know that I can make these comments of just like, it's really fast.
Yeah.
Because you have enough draw on there to be able to drop a bunch of creatures. And so if somebody doesn't have that mass removal to reset you, it's basically game over. I want to say that it's over within 9-10 turns.
Yeah, this is my...
Easy.
Is my go-to deck if I'm having a bad night. I've mentioned that before. Where I'm like, I just need to get a win, so I haven't won anything tonight, and so I would play this. But I actually haven't played this in a long time.
So that says that you've been winning.
I've been winning.
It's time to beat
Tough
you.
guy sniff. Flat tire.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. So that's my Animar deck in a nutshell. The monodorks and tons of draw. I mean, I didn't talk about all the drawing in there. I was more focused on how you go and win the game, your win conditions of this deck, and it kind of covers everything. So if you have somebody that's gaining a ton of life, the commander is the one that does the damage and can kill somebody. So does pretty good.
Yeah, it's a solid deck.
So,
I would agree with that.
All right, I'm very interested to see where you went with your deck.
So
there's a bunch of different styles of Animar decks, and so I'm very curious.
What I tried to stick to with Animar Soul of Elements is an elemental tribal theme when it came to that. And a really nice part of the elementals, there's a lot of it in the cards that really spoke to me were the cards from Lorwyn and Morningtide. They are elements that they have the ability evoke. And so I'll use the example of the card that I think a lot of people like, and a lot of people use it, Mulldrifter. So it doesn't sound like much. It's 4 colorless, 1 blue for a 2/2 flyer. When it comes into play, you draw 2 cards. But the evoke cost is 2 colorless, 1 blue, and what that means is it's a lot cheaper, but the creature comes into play, you are casting it, and then right when it comes into play, you sacrifice it.
So your Animar still gets the 1/1 counter on it.
Still gets the 1/1 counter. And
you're drawing 2 cards.
And you're drawing 2 cards, and then it's going into the graveyard.
Or if Animar already has the counters on it,
then it's cheaper to evoke it, or later on.
Yeah,
with the evoke creatures, once you've evoked enough, you can start playing them at normal cost, or for 1 blue you could do it. And that's what I was thinking, was the evoke is so much cheaper, but you're still casting a creature, and then you're able to get those early counters on Animar and then move into the other creatures and be able to play them. Some other solid evoke creatures that I kind of have on a list, I'm not going to talk much about them. Slither Muse, when it leaves the battlefield, you get to draw cards the amount that an opponent has. Spite Bellows comes down for 2 red and a colorless, and it deals 6 damage.
All evoke ones?
These are all evoke ones, and they'll still overcost it. And Ingot Chewer is 1 red to evoke, and it destroys an artifact when it comes into play.
What was its name?
Ingot Chewer. So Ingot is an artifact type thing, and then it chews it up. Ah,
gotcha.
Got it?
It sounded like you sneezed.
Well, actually, the Ingot Chewer, the foil of that is $15-$16.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's not something I like. But the non-foil version's 50 cents less than. And the card out of that, Mulldrifter, I would say it's a cheap card. A ton of people use it because it has that versatility and draws you cards. I'd say go out and pick some foils up. They're $250 for the Modern Master version. In the Lorwyn version, the original is up to $8-9. So I think you have a little bit of potential to buy into those and make a little,
I like
at least
Mulldrifter a lot. Yeah.
be ahead on that.
Definitely.
So with it being an elemental deck, there are some cards out there that are elemental, like specifically to help out, like Flamekin Harbinger, which is from Lorwyn. It's 1 red, 1/1. When it comes into play, you get to search for an elemental and then put that on top of your library. That's a solid card. Incandescent Soulstoke kind of has that same feel of like cheating creatures into play with your Tooth and Nail, but what that does, it's red 2 colorless 2/2, gives all your creatures or all your elementals +1/+1. And you can pay a red and a colorless, tap it, and put an elemental into play until end of turn, and it has haste.
Nice.
So it's nice. It's just kind of like another easy way to get these big elementals into play at least.
Because you're doing more of a tribal with elemental with
exactly.
this deck.
Yeah.
So
and that's where
really
like some of the cards that are nice, and I think they're not reprinted, and they're not going to be reprinted a ton, are the elemental specific lands. So you have like Primal Beyond and Flamekin Village, and they're both lands. Primal Beyond, it comes into play untapped if you show an elemental, which if you're an elemental deck, you should have that. And then it gives you any color of mana you want.
It would be nice if you could show the elemental that's sitting in your command zone.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
Animar's an elemental.
I believe that's called Command Tower.
Yeah.
And then another one for Flamekin Village, it also comes into play untapped if you show an elemental, and then it gives you a red, or you can pay a red, tap it, and give a creature haste.
Nice.
Which haste is always nice.
Yeah, even giving that to your Animar.
Yep. Animar is going to be a 1/1 if you're trying to haste them.
Think at that point.
I mean, you could, but
well, what if they're at 20 commander damage? You just need to do one more commander damage.
And they're black and white.
Yeah,
I like black and white deck. Time to get them. And so I think the lands are something that you can look at and just be like, well, they're not going to reprint a ton of these because they're so specific.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're solid cards. Now, a nice thing to be able to do is with the evoke costs on elementals, you actually can respond to the evoke sacrifice trigger, and you can sacrifice it to something else for value.
Oh, okay. That's where it gets interesting, where you have to actually know the kind of like how the rules go of when your creature comes in.
Yeah, comes into play and it says you need to sacrifice this, so that enters the stack. And then what you want to do is if you have a sacrifice outlet that's for free, or you can use you use it for that benefit. So like Goblin Bombardment, which is an enchantment, you can sacrifice a creature to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. You have like Greater Good, which with these elementals
draws you stuff.
It can draw you cards for the power, and then you discard 3, which is a solid card to refill your hand. And the one that I really like that I think would be great for this deck is Perilous Forays, which is an enchantment, 2 green and 3 colorless, and it's you can sacrifice a creature for 1, and then you go and search for a basic land card and put it into play tapped.
What's nice too is you don't need to tap it or anything like that. You can do it to multiple creatures if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then you're getting more mana to help cast with your big elemental fatties.
Exactly. So part of it is just like you don't want to have to rely on Animar, but Animar is awesome, and so you want to. And the sack outlet is great there too. And with Perilous Forays, it made me think of like, I really like Landfall as a mechanic, and there are actually some really good elementals out there that help with Landfall.
Oh, nice.
And so
you kind of have a side theme to it. With
yeah,
the
side,
Landfall.
but they're elementals. So Omnath, Locus of Rage.
Yeah.
Whenever a land comes into play, you get a 5/5 elemental, and whenever an elemental dies, it deals 3 damage to a creature or player.
So you can really wreck somebody that way.
When you're evoking, you're getting that trigger. If you're Perilous Forays, you can sacrifice one of those 5/5s and get another land, get another 5/5, 3 damage, and just kind of play off of that as well.
It is nice too that it is 1 colorless, like it's not color specific.
Yeah.
So you can kind of play around with that more.
Yeah. Zendikar's Royal is an enchantment that I tried mentioning in the last podcast, and I kind of messed up the name. I said Royal of Zendikar, which is a different card, but Zendikar's Royal is pretty cool. Yeah, it's a 5 mana green enchantment that when a land comes into play, you get a 2/2 enchantment. So that kind of plays with Omnath there.
Good thing we don't have a lot of listeners right now, because we'd have just paraded in the comments. God, How did you think? I can't believe that you said that. You're so
How could you mess up Zendikar's Royal and Royal of Zendikar? They're two completely different cards. One's blue and one's green.
Oh my god! I can't believe you did that.
I know. And then another one.
I bet you couldn't sleep after that too.
Well, you're like, I was trying to figure out what the heck the card was because I knew I wasn't right after I listened to myself. But the card that I think is really heavily played in the Commander scene is Avenger of Zendikar. That's an elemental, and it works great with Animar.
Oh yeah.
And you're able to put down a bunch of chump 0-1s and
too bad Animar doesn't go whenever a creature enters the battlefield because that'd be a ridiculous combo.
Oh my gosh.
Avenger is Zendikar. Oh yeah, and then I add about 7 more counters on this.
Yeah, and so and that this all leads into the support of the deck. And one card that would work for in your deck, which is kind of newer, is Hardened Scales.
Yeah. And
I really like that card. It's a 1-mana green enchantment, and whenever a 1/1 counter is put on a creature, you put another 1/1 counter on a creature. Yeah. Now and it's
an enchantment and not just an enchant creature. Where it's similar to where you had to put it on the actual creature. This is nice because it just sits there, and then it's whenever a counter is actually put on, it goes on all your creatures.
And this card is awesome because it works with a lot of different commanders to pick up. Right now it's about $2. I believe the foils are in between $4 and $5, but they work with Genera, Asura of War, which is a Bant Angel commander.
Atrexa
+1/+1 style counter decks. You got Gabe, Guru of Spores. There's just a ton of decks commanders that deal with 1/1 counters, and this just can go on a lot of them.
Yeah, I like that card a lot. Especially if you can get the foil ones of those bad boys. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. A couple of cards also that we've talked about in the past, before we started the podcast. Forgotten Ancient is actually an elemental, and that's
which one is that again?
3 colorless, 1 green for I want to say it's a 1/1, but whenever an opponent or whenever a spell is played, put a 1/1 counter on it.
Oh yeah.
And during your upkeep, move 1/1 counters to wherever.
Around. Yeah.
So you can just whenever somebody plays a card, put a 1/1 counter on it. Works with Hardened Scales.
Yeah.
Move them all onto Animar. Make all your creatures super easy to. Yeah. It can get. I can see it being really crazy. Panharmonicon seems really cool in this deck, it seems really cool in a lot of decks.
Panharmonicon, it's such a good card, but it's so freaking confusing when you get it. Just the
it triggers a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. I've always had I don't have trouble with it, but it's always okay, so this works, right? We're getting double this, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very, very good card. I like that card. Actually has a spec in itself. But
yeah.
That's another story.
Yeah. Some other cards that I really like in this deck are Cauldron of Souls, which is a 5-mana artifact. You can tap it and give any creature persist, which means if it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it.
And
so
if
it
this
works
is all
well.
Consistent with making 1/1 counters, you can X-nay that -1 counter.
Yeah. So Animar would end up dying because he comes back.
Oh, yeah,
he's a 1/1.
Yeah.
He would die, but the evoke creatures come back. If you want to actually save somebody else's creature.
I like that idea with the evoke.
Yeah, you can actually save somebody else's creature if you need that back, on the battlefield, because it's any creature. So you can play politics, or if you're trying to gang up on a person and they rat the board, you're like, we're all going to come back, and your stuff is dead. And then another card that I really like with the evoke mechanic here is Mimic Vat, which is a 3-mana artifact that whenever a creature goes to the graveyard, and this is any creature, anybody's, you get to exile that from their graveyard, and it is imprinted onto that artifact. You can pay 3, tap it,
and
make a token of that creature until end of turn.
Nice.
So it works well with evoke, and it's just solid with other people's creatures. Other people want to play good creatures too. And so you're like, well, that's dead. I'm actually going to take it. They can't reanimate it because it's exiled from their graveyard.
And then you can keep making copies of it.
Yep. And with the sack outlets, you can have Wormcoil Engine tokens after that, or if there's something that comes into play that creates tokens, they're left there. It's a really sweet card. And I think it goes in a lot of decks as well.
Yeah, I like that combo.
So with Evoke, you're having a lot of your creatures go to the graveyard, and it'd be nice to have them back for Animar. So I have a little bit of a recursion theme in there as well. Regrowth, which is a really cool card. Eternal Witness, a lot of people, that's the one card that I think is off elemental theme for a creature. One kind of card that's pretty cool, it's an elemental. I don't know if I'd play it, but Gravesifter.
What is that one? Actually, I don't know Gravesifter.
So it's an elemental from a commander set, and when it comes into play, everybody gets to choose a creature type and bring all of those creatures back into your hand.
Yeah.
So that can bite you in the butt, and normally it does bite me in the butt. So I'm not huge on playing it, but I think it can be really cool if you have a great advantage if you're the only tribal deck at the table.
Yeah.
Because other people can just be like, well, I'm going to get my best card
One
back.
card back,
and you get
multiple.
a fistful.
Yeah.
But an elemental that I really like out of it, because you get double duty, is Greenwarden of Murasa from Battle for Zendikar. And it's a 6-mana green, so it's 4 mana, 2 green. It's a 5/4. When it comes into play, you get to bring a card back from your graveyard, and when it dies, you can exile it and bring a card back from your graveyard.
So basically, it's 2 regrowths right there.
Yeah, it's 2 regrowths in Animar. It almost should only cost 2 green to play.
Yeah,
you have
which is what regrowth costs.
You have your sack outlets
and he's
to be
a
able to get it
5/4
back.
as well.
5/4 beater. Yeah. It seems like really powerful in there, and I think it works in a lot of decks. I've liked it in a couple of different ones, like Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Their green graveyard decks are pretty good. Marin of the clan Telnoth, I believe it is. Yeah. And then you just, with the tribal theme, there are some good general tribal cards out there. You have Call to the Kindred, which is kind of a weird one. It's like an aura that you get to look at the top 5 cards and put, I think, one of that, like an elemental, into my hand. So it kind of like digs a little bit deeper. So Steely Resolve would give all of your elementals Shroud. I don't know how well Shared Animosity would go in there. I think that's better for a tribal token deck like Krenko, but Shared Animosity, for each creature that's attacking that you control, it gets +1/+0 for each other creature that shares a creature type with it. I don't know how many elementals are going to be on the field with this one, so that's kind of iffy. Cryptic Gateway is kind of a cool card. It's an artifact for like 5 or 6 mana. You can tap 2 of the same, like 2 elementals, and you get to put an elemental from your hand into play for free. Yeah. Not casting, so it doesn't help Animar, but again, it's a way to get around if people are targeting Animar. And the kind of cool card that I feel like is a little underpriced, and I think it's a solid card, is Descendants Path.
Yeah, I actually do like this one as a spec as well.
Yeah, and so it's an enchantment for 2 colorless, 1 green, and you look at during your upkeep. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal a top card. If it's a creature that shares a creature type of another creature you control on the battlefield, you get to put it directly onto the battlefield.
That's nice. Yep. So it's super awesome with tribal stuff.
Yeah, and if you're just running like Sensei's Defining Top or Miri's Guile in a deck, it's pretty solid in most tribal green decks.
Yep. Just being able to stack what your top looks like so you can actually get stuff out for free.
Yep.
I like it.
And so that's kind of the rough idea that I had for Animar Soul of the Elementals. And
so you actually have him as an elemental commander, which is kind of cool. I like that idea. You're going to have to build that deck. Are you going to build it?
If people actually watch the YouTube video that we're going to be putting together of the Masters 25, I was able to pull Animar in that deck.
Yep. Oh,
so
don't give away the spoilers.
Well, they don't know when I get it, is the big thing.
Yeah, it was. You'll have to watch the video. We'll have that one coming up pretty much at the same time as this.
I was pretty salty.
Yeah. Hey, don't give it away. Don't give it away. It doesn't mean that he won or lost. You'll have to watch Dueling Boxes. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was actually a lot of fun opening up that box. On to segment 2. We're actually going to go through a couple of our spec cards here for the week. I'll start off one card, especially with Dominaria being revealed. This is one card I feel like if you're going to invest in it, it's now that you need to invest in because it's already starting to go up. Because Dominaria is heavy on the legendary creatures, and this one deals with it. It's Riki, the History of Kamigawa. So what that card does is 2 colorless, 1 green, a legendary creature, human shaman, and whenever you play a legendary spell, you get to draw a card, and he's a 1/2. Now, so that counts for everything that's coming with Dominaria, with the legendary sorceries, the legendary enchantments, legendary creatures.
They changed Planeswalkers to legendary in the last year.
So actually, it originally spiked when they changed that rule on the Planeswalkers.
Okay.
And then it's kind of been going down ever since. It was over $10. But now with Dominaria coming out, that's going to be more of a thing that people are going to actually...
starting to go up again.
And the thing is, it doesn't really have a reprint... Like it would have to happen in a Masters set, because it can't be in like any signature set, because of it's pretty much stuck to Saviors of Kamigawa. Yeah. Unless they came back to Kamigawa.
One of the least favorite modern day sets.
So the reprint, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen very soon. So I feel like
I would agree.
This is something to get now, and actually I got it. I bought another copy because I didn't think I had a copy, but I got my copy before at $5, and I just bought one for today for $6.50. But they're over $9. I mean, there's barely any left at under $9. So
yeah, and I have 2. Like I play one in my Captain Sasay deck, and it's a nice little draw engine.
Yeah. So that's my first spec. What's yours, Lowry?
And mine kind of plays off of the Dominaria spoilers or leaks as well, and I'm also going to stick to the Kamigawa block. Now there are a lot of like legend matter cards in the Kamigawa block, because it's fairly similar to this Dominaria block that's coming out. There's like Kamigawa 2.0, and you hope that Dominaria actually works. And so Time of Need, which is a sorcery, it's an uncommon from Champions of Kamigawa, and it's 1 colorless, 1 green sorcery. Search your library for a legendary creature card and put it in your hand.
So with all the legendary stuff coming out, that works really well with that.
Just adds more.
What are we at for a price
bullets.
on that?
This card's like $1.50 right now.
Okay.
But the foil of it is over $11.
Oh,
and
geez,
so there's something that's a little bit off. I think it's starting to go up a little bit as well.
So are you thinking more of the foil or the regular version?
I'd say the regular version. I think the foil version is probably going to go up. I think it's going to go up as well.
Okay.
But I don't think it's going to go up as much.
Okay.
It'd be a lot easier to sell. So maybe a couple foil if you want to turn around and sell them once Dominaria comes out.
Yeah.
Off the hype.
And by the way, we mentioned it before, but Dominaria it just got. I mean, it was 2/3 of the set, so we pretty much know what's all in that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, but my next one, and I've been on this one, the same one as I talked about in our first podcast with Mirage Mirror, kind of the same boat as that. It's Ramanop Excavator, and it is 2 colorless and 1 green, 2/3. If you know Crucible Worlds, it does what Crucible Worlds does. You may play land cards from your graveyard, and if you look at a Crucible Worlds, it's at like $60+ right now.
Yeah, it's a great card.
Now, I'm focused more on the foils of this, and you have to be careful of this, because here's the problem. This is one of the rare cards that they actually did a launch party foil and then your pre-release foil. Most of these cards, your rares, you get a pre-release foil, but they had a launch party foil, and it's a completely different art, which I actually don't mind it, but most people hate it.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, but you can get that foil cheaper than the regular card. And card stores, especially on TCG, have a tough time. I buy the ones that are the pre-release ones, and I would say 70% of the time they send me the launch party ones.
Oh, so they mess up.
Yeah, and so I'd be like, you gave me the wrong ones. This is a completely different art than the ones I'm looking for. I was like, I don't want to spend the money to send it back to you, so can you just refund me the difference of what it would cost? And it's normally like $1.50 for those foils.
Yeah.
Where compared to the launch or the pre-release ones, you can get them around probably $6. They're sitting on. Right now they say 7, but I've got a couple.
Goldfish.
Yeah, I Goldfish, but I've been able to get them around $4 or $5 right now.
We kind of go off of Goldfish a lot because it's super easy. But a better way of knowing how much you can kind of like buy them for are the market price on TCG Player.
And actually, if you go on eBay, that's where you really will be able to tell what it's going to sell for, because I don't have a TCG account to sell on there, so I'm selling all mine through eBay. So that's typically where I go if I'm like, okay, what is this gonna sell at if I'm trying to figure out the price at. But buying, I typically buy through TCG because it is cheaper than eBay. So, but this works so well with all the. We only had one card that you could take your land out of the graveyard and bring it in. Play it like it was from your. Yeah. And now we have two.
There's a reason why. Yeah. There's really I think the third one would be Life from the Loam.
Yeah.
And that's a different, it's a sorcery. It's doing something different. But I think all three of them are really powerful cards.
And so you can play, it gives you more tools to be able to build a deck that's based off of playing from your graveyard and sacrificing your lands. Like with Gitrog.
Just being able to replay your fetches is really powerful.
Or Strip Mine.
Yeah, Strip Mine's a jerk.
Well, I'll say that every time. We determined that we both have done this.
We both done it, but it's douchebag. It's called winning. Yeah, folks, get over it.
Hashtag winning.
Hashtag winning. Yeah, let's bring back that guy. What's his name? Tiger Blood.
Tiger Blood?
Yeah, Charlie Sheen.
Oh, yeah. I was like, Tiger Blood. Nice. I forgot. That is what that's from.
Yeah, that dude he's nuts. Nice. Let's not bring him back. No. Let's edit this out.
All right, next card.
Never mention Charlie Sheen again.
But anyways, like I said, go for the launch party. Or not. Oh, God. Not the launch party. If you wanted to save some money and kind of trying to bank on maybe buying some of the foils, you can get those cheaper than the regular ones. I have about 20 of them, but I got them for like $1.50. And then I have about 10 of the foil, just pre-release ones. So that I think it's a good card to spec on. It's still low, and it hasn't started jumping yet. But the prices or the amount of decks on the EDH Rec is going up quite a bit. So it's pretty equal, a little less than Crucible of Worlds, but it's getting up there.
Yeah.
So next card.
The card I'm going to stick with tutoring, and that would be Thalia's Lancers.
That's why it smells down here.
Yeah, tutor. It's from Eldritch Moon. So it's a newer card, and so it's pretty cheap right now. It's like 63 cents, but it's 4/4 first strike creature for 3 colorless and 2 white. But the important part is when it comes into the battlefield, you can search your library for a legendary card. Not a creature, not just a legendary card. So adding those legendary sorceries into play, having the change of Planeswalker to legendary, you can go and search up anything that's legendary, a land, stuff like that.
So what's interesting about that card is go to the foils.
Yeah.
I actually, when they changed the rules on Planeswalkers, I bought a bunch of the foils and regulars, and I've been out on that. I got out on that one, I've sold it before Dominaria, but no, I made a big profit off of that, and now we have Dominaria coming out, so buy back in again. I mean, it dropped back down a little bit, but
the foils are sitting right around like $250.
Yeah, so I got out on I think $4 or $5 each for the foils.
I think it'll go back up to $4 or $5 easy.
Yeah, so the foils and non-foils I think are good ones on that. I think I kept 4 of my foils and then 1 regular on that.
I think it's just a solid card in general.
Yeah, it's a good search.
Especially for EDH, being able to go and find a good legendary card is pretty important.
Land included, enchantment, any of that stuff. That's legendary in there.
That's true.
It's in there. All right, my last one is, and this one's kind of another one, like you need to get on the boat with this one and buy pretty quick. Because it's actually already rising. Aetherflux Reservoir. Now I love this card in my Rashmi deck, but it's good in a ton of decks. It's whenever you cast, so it's 4 colorless artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you cast that turn, and then you may pay 50 life to do 50 damage to target player or creature. That's pretty badass. If
it's doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, even if you're not doing that part of it, it's just casting spells, gaining life, and people don't necessarily target it being like, whatever, you can keep gaining life, it's not a big deal. So it doesn't get brought down right away unless you're comboing with it, which that's what I do with the Rashmi.
Like if you just cast 3 spells, you just gain 6 life.
Yeah. So it's pretty ridiculous. And then if you gain enough life, if it's probably in a typical 50. Life gaining deck, you can just wipe out a player right there.
Yeah, if you're over 50, you just play it and burn somebody out.
Yeah, and like I said, my target on this is to go for the foils, and specifically the pre-released ones, because those are still around $5. They keep, they're hovering around $5 to $6, whereas the regular ones, the set foils, are over $9, and those are just rising. So it's only a matter of time before these are gone. And I bought a bunch of these. I have 10 of these in foil that I got for $3 or $4, and so they've already gone up a couple bucks since I got them about 2 months ago, I think.
And this card's played a lot in Commander.
Yeah, EDH, it's over 9,000 decks right now for EDH. So that's saying a lot. If you get over for a new card that's only been out for a year plus and it's over 5,000, that's pretty good. So, but yeah, that is my last one. What is your last one, Lau?
Mine is Dense Foliage. Now, it's been a cheap card forever, but I just really like it, and I'm kind of surprised. So it's an enchantment, 2 colorless, 1 green. Creatures cannot be the target of spells. It's pretty simple. It's not hexproof. It's not shroud. It's just spells can't target your creatures. And so if you can take advantage of that and you're playing Animar with a bunch of elementals that do your damage and remove creatures, then you're kind of one up. You're still able to target with your creature abilities because you have less spells to play with.
Yeah.
And it kind of handicaps the other people. And a lot of mass protections, like enchantments, like Ascetism, those are expensive cards. And like I think Ascetism is like, I want to say over $8 off the top of my head. And this card's 3 mana to play, and if you can just use it to your advantage, I think it's worth more than the 75 cents that it is.
And do we have the foil version of that bad boy?
They're actually...
No, is there on that?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think there's a foil.
No, there isn't.
No.
It was printed in Weatherlight and 6th edition, so before foils were made.
So to get the black border, the 6th
black
edition.
Border, don't get 6th edition.
6th edition would be
white borders are awful.
Yeah, you see how dirty the cards can get.
Yeah.
I hate white border stuff.
Stick to the black border.
That's a very good spec because you don't have a foil version of going after that. So that's the only version you're going after.
Yeah, and
it's at 72, and it's been that way for a long time.
Forever. Yeah, it just feels really undervalued.
Yeah,
for what it can do.
Very nice. All right, well, that is our pick segment, our Smith specs for the week.
Smith specs.
Whisper in my ear.
I'm going to do every segment Smith name in that. Current magic news coming up now.
News of the week. As you know, what we've been talking about is Dominaria or Dominaria, however you want to say it.
Yeah, I don't really know how to say it.
We're covering both our bases. I say Dominaria, he's saying Dominaria, so we're covered there. So.
I have a cold. So either way, I'm right.
But it's interesting. Like we were talking about before, it's kind of crazy that this stuff just keeps getting spoiled. Like Masters 25 hadn't even come out yet, and then this is already spoiled part of the whole set,
Yeah.
No pictures, though. That makes it a little more interesting.
So, do you know exactly what happened with the leak?
It was something with China.
Yeah, so I feel like there was some type of information, and it was in Chinese when it was released, so it was... and then it just... Somehow it got onto, like, I think a web page of Wizards. I think. I'm not 100% sure. Then people just take these snapshots, and then it spreads like wildfire. Yeah. And
it's crazy that this is so many times this year that this has happened.
This isn't coming out until April.
Yeah, so we have some time, and normally they don't do it
end of April, I think.
What, they do it 2 weeks before they start doing the spoilers?
For bigger for newer standard sets, they try like 3 weeks.
Well, lately they've been doing 1 week reveals, which is kind of crazy that they've been doing that. Masters 25 was a 1 week. I guess Iconic was a... No, that wasn't even a 1 week. That was at that...
they'll do 1 week because...
Wasn't that a GP?
They don't think people are excited about reprints.
Yeah.
And they got that probably from core sets way back in the day. Yeah. But that's because core sets sucked.
They were so bad.
And so...
But you'd have a couple good cards out of there.
Sure.
Yeah. But for the most part, they were pretty bad. But so some key things to note
Wizards,
with this.
nobody's excited about bad reprints.
Yeah. Where's our Birds of Paradise?
Yeah,
we should have Birds of Paradise in this. We were discussing that. That would have
Birds of
been
Paradise
so...
apparently isn't iconic,
Or
and it's not good enough to be
Masters
in
25.
25 years.
It's like the most used card in Modern for green, like color, whatever.
I love Bop.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's the...
It could be in Dominaria here.
Yeah.
Even though they were spoiled like 2/3 of the set.
And they... Yeah.
It's not.
No, it's not going to be.
It's
but so some of the new stuff that we are dealing with in this set is a thing called Saga, which...
Saga seems cool.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of the one card that they have it revealed. It's weird because it's a side art. So you have the Saga stuff happening on the left. It's like a scroll.
Yep.
And there's 3 parts to the Saga. The first, you go down each turn and you put a counter on the first Saga. Your next turn you put it on the second one. And then the third turn you put it on there and then you sacrifice it. And not all the times does it do a different thing on each Saga. Sometimes 2 and 3
do you
are
want to
the
read,
same.
like, so the one that they have a picture of is Phyrexian Scriptures.
So it's 2 and 2 black enchantment Saga. Put a 1/1 counter. So the first one is put a 1/1 counter on top of or on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. The next turn, when you put your second counter on, destroy all non-artifact creatures. And then your third one is exile all cards from opponents' graveyards. And then at that point, when you put that third one on, you sacrifice it after you put the counter on it. So another thing that came with is we now have this thing called, what is it? The legendaries, artifacts, and are all considered one type.
And Planeswalkers.
And Planeswalkers are considered, what are they called? They're called a certain type now.
Yeah, we'd have to find it.
Historic cards. Which is, it's kind of interesting they added artifacts into there.
Well,
I guess because it's like artifact, like is an old
they're
or
always
whatever.
older when you're using it. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But yeah, so it's just funny that you have these 2 legendary things and then artifacts as part of your historic stuff.
I think that makes it not so unplayable. Like, people always have artifacts out, and so
yeah,
this is. I think they're trying to avoid like the arcane problem or the energy problem where it's just like super insular.
Yeah,
and so you can only play legendary sorceries when you have legends in play.
Yeah.
Well, how about artifacts? They're kind of historic too, and flavor-wise, it makes sense. And then you're just able to actually just cast them more often.
Yeah, I get it. It's just it's interesting. We have a whole new sub.
Historic, yeah. I think it was really cool.
Yeah. So
going back to sagas though, like I really like that as a flavor thing because they're talking about Dominaria and a lot of the beginning, like the first 10-15 years of Magic is on Dominaria, and so these sagas kind of go through the story of different parts of the history of Dominaria. That's why it's really cool. Like the Phyrexians were there.
Nerd.
I feel like there's a Hominid saga in there somewhere from Fallen Empires. I'd have to relook, but it just like it's telling the story of the first decade easily of Magic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool idea of just being able to quick get like a year's worth of information onto one card.
Yeah. In this set. Specifically seems like it's made for frickin' EDH because of all the legendary stuff.
From my understanding, there's going to be a legendary card
in every single
each pack.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And we got legendary sorceries, which you can't cast them unless you control a legendary permanent, or is it creature?
It's the historic part.
Yeah. So
you need a legendary creature, planeswalker, or artifact to cast these legendary sorceries.
Yeah. So interesting cards in this. Interesting mechanics in it. We also got Kicker back again, I think, in this.
Kicker's a pretty sweet.
Yeah. I like that. So my favorite card of this, it's got to be Karn. Karn is ridiculous. We got the Planeswalker Karn again.
He's coming back.
And as you know, the other Karn is over $80 now because they keep not
they made him
reprinting.
bonkers.
Yeah, and this Karn, he's going to be up that $80, but he's going to be up there because he's 4 colorless, and this is one of the cards we'll talk about, but we're not going to really go in depth. Next week will be more of that, but this is the one I'm excited for.
Next week I feel like I want to really deep dive into a lot of these cards.
But this one's just ridiculous. So he's 4 colorless to come out, and he has 5 loyalty. His +1 is reveal top 2 cards. Your opponent chooses one of those cards, it goes in your hand. The other one is exiled with a silver counter on it. Then you're -1, so basically you get it back down to your 5. You get to take one of those cards that has a silver counter on it and put it in your hand. So you're basically drawing 2 cards, and his loyalty does not go down at all. And then your -2 is making a 0/0 colorless construct artifact where... Oh, no, that's just that... Oh, no, where his... Yeah, he gets 1+1 for each artifact you control.
That seems really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous for a 4-mana planeswalker. I mean, the draw engine of that.
It's draw, and make a huge creature thing. Yeah, and you can make that huge thing right off the bat in an artifact.
Yeah, that's a good point because you can do its ultimate, which really its ultimate is kind of weak, but whatever. It's a good card for 4 mana, and it can go in any deck. You know, so I feel this card is going to go pretty bonkers from the beginning.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's pretty solid. Colorless in any deck.
Yeah.
Did you just say that?
Yeah. Repeat.
What? I'm a parrot.
Repeat loud.
So
and it also can go colorless. It can go in any deck.
This just kind of tells you that I don't pay attention to you a lot.
You're just like, I'm waiting for myself to talk.
Yeah.
It's my turn to talk.
It really doesn't matter what Adam says. It was definitely more important when I said it. Just saying.
That makes sense, Larry.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I don't even know what Adam said. I want to call you drunk, but we're towards the end of the podcast, so we don't want to open up a beer now.
No, I prefer not to. Yeah. I got to drive home.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get more in depth with that set next week. There really won't be anything more released on it, but we'll just go more in depth with the cards that we do know about.
I think there's a lot of cards that you can speculate on. Yeah. Like there's a Saproling legend out there. There's there's so many cool legends out there that I already want to build with, and I got to wait at least basically 2 months at this point.
Yeah.
To build them.
But it's kind of cool. We already know a whole bunch. I can't wait for the art. I guess that's what I'll be more.
Yeah, the art seems really cool.
It is weird to see all these cards and not have the art with it. It doesn't feel as nostalgic. That card's awesome. Like you need the art to add in how cool the card is.
Yeah,
because you could have really crappy art and the card does. I don't know. Just having these blank pictures. We only have 2 pictures of these cards.
Just words.
Yeah.
Who wants to read? Give me those pictures. Yeah.
Readings for chumps.
Like just to give an example, a little taste for next week. There's a commander that is going to be coming. Do you know what Lightning Helix is?
Yes.
1 red, 1 white, instant. Deal 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. This card, because of the commander, will deal 9 damage and gain you 6 life. Off of that card that I just explained. This commander does that. It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it is crazy.
I'm excited for this.
Well, one more thing.
Oh, you want to... All right.
They also have Llanowar Elves back in it.
Llanowar Elves is...
Gonna go into Standard.
Yeah. So, Llanowar Elves was taken out of Standard because of a philosophy shift for Wizards because of Standard. And they felt like it speeds up the format really fast. So, instead of going turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, a lot of mana dorks in the last couple of years have been 2 mana. So that it turns...
It takes a little bit longer for people to ramp up.
3 drops on turn 2 is too fast.
Yeah.
But 4 drops on turn 3 is okay.
Yeah.
That's basically what they were saying. And now...
They're like, here you go.
Now with Llanowar Elves being in there, it just sped up Standard a lot quicker at this point.
Yeah, that's going to be insane. But anyways, that was just my little... I wanted to add... Because
I would love it if they added,
school.
That'd be great if they went back to, super powerful cards, getting Lightning Bolt back in Standard.
Man.
Birds of Paradise that we just talked about. That'd be great if they just souped up Dominaria and made it really powerful, going we made this awesome. They do have
Hey Wizards, you haven't released the other ones yet. Go ahead and put in Bop. Lightning Bolt.
They already kind of have a Lightning Bolt and a new counterspell that's coming out, and that's if you control a wizard, you basically have a lightning bolt. If you control a wizard, you have a counter spell.
Yeah.
Which is powerful in itself. I don't know if it's super fun to have them restricted like that, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Next week we will go more in depth.
Yeah, I think we'll get a little bit more in depth.
And we'll just basically, next week is just going through cards, kind of we did with the other sets a little bit. Deck tech next week, right?
I don't think so. I think I just want to talk about this and talk about cards that are out there that would work really well.
It could be a little bit of specking with the cards that, like you said, work well with that.
Yeah.
Am I repeating you?
No.
You know what we want to do is we want to talk about the cards ever.
You've never had an unoriginal thought ever.
Oh, you are drunk. All right. That about wraps up this podcast.
We can start the
you
next
know what I
podcast
realized
with you,
as we
Brandon.
got through the end of this one is we never said in the beginning of the podcast where people can catch us.
You know what? So I think we're going to start using our Twitter. We haven't touched it yet.
Oh, no. I did the tweets of the cards from last time.
Did you?
So we will tweet all the cards on Twitter. And
Okay.
actually, our episodes get posted on Twitter automatically when I upload them up.
Oh, really?
So they pop up on there. So we actually have like 6 tweets.
Huh.
And both you and I don't have a Twitter account besides
Yeah,
this
I know.
one. So this is the first time we're
I
like,
haven't really checked it.
yeah. Well, I do have a Twitter account, but yes, I have old stuff on there.
We're working on it.
Yeah. So, but yeah. You can catch us, shoot a tweet at us at CommanderSmiths.
Or CommanderSmiths@gmail.com.
Once again, you can do they can give us suggestions
if you
for songs.
have a song that you want us to sing, you can write it out for us. And
Once again, just put our name, who you want to sing, or it could be, well, no, you need to have a name.
yeah, we need a name
be
so
specific,
that one person can sing and then the other person can guess.
Because otherwise we'll both read it and then, game over. And then we may actually give you a shout out for, well, we will give you a shout out if you give us the
won't.
song.
I did it all myself.
It's such a douche. This is all me. I am a genius.
This means that you're going to get a ton of singing requests. And then I get none.
Yeah. Only like really freaking tough ones for you. Douchey.
No, that'll be all right.
All right. So, that does it for episode number 5.
Oh, and we did just open up Masters 25.
Yep.
And so we're going to try and get that on YouTube.
Boxes.
Yeah, Dueling Boxes. We're going to try and get that on YouTube here as well.
Yep. They're pretty close to each other. So, you can check out, see who wins in their first episode of Dueling Boxes.
Who has the most value out of the box that we opened. And we all know Adam cries a lot. So,
God. Why are you doing this at the end of the episode? You are being an ass. Love you.
all right.
That does it for this episode. We will catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.